Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody enjoyed the keynote. And welcome to the Service and Operations track. My name is Molly Grant, and I'll be your MC over the next couple of days. We've got a great mix of sessions in this track from both Atlassians and customers. As you probably know, we formally entered the IT and services market about 3 years ago when we released Jira Service Desk. Since then, we've changed our focus to supporting IT and service teams across all of our products and all kinds of use cases, including internal support, ITSM, external customer service, automation, and even machine learning. Over the next 2 days, we'll cover everything from an inside look into new features within Jira Service Desk, a deep dive into automation, how Samsung implemented ITIL, and Airbnb's talk of how they changed their service culture. Before we get started with our first session, just a few housekeeping items. Please move to the center of the row so that others can slide in later, and also please mute your phones. If you haven't downloaded the Summit app yet, we highly recommend doing so to keep track of upcoming talks and make an agenda for yourself, which will also ping you with reminders about which room you're supposed to go to. You'll also be able to take a survey after each session to let the speakers know how they did, which is extremely important for them. So let's kick this off. We have a strong start to Service and Ops this morning with 2 Atlassians from our Service Enablement team speaking about how support and development teams can break down the walls with reporting, insights, and prediction. So some fun facts about our speakers over here. Matt Hunter is often told that he looks familiar or like a celebrity, most notably Nick Cage or Ryan Gosling, and he prefers the second one. And Matt Saxby, he loves long-distance running, and he completed a 90-kilometer ultra marathon in South Africa, which is about 56 miles for the Americans in the room. So please join me in welcoming our first speakers to the stage, Matt Hunter and Matt Saxby.
Good morning, everybody. I am Matt Saxby, and this is Matt Hunter, and we're here today to talk to you about how Atlassian broke down the walls between our global support team and our development teams who are producing our product. To get started, I wanted to talk you through an example, and that example is of BlackBerry. So BlackBerry, back in 2008, released this phone, which is the BlackBerry Bold. At the time, it was the phone to have. People loved it because it had that big tactile keyboard and they could type super quickly. I'm sure tons of you probably had this phone. In fact, it was so popular that in 2009, BlackBerry was named Fortune magazine's fastest growing company in the world, with earnings exploding at 84% a year. So that was sort of represented in their share price, as you can see, up at about $120 a share. But the world was changing. Smartphones were becoming the way that people wanted to use phones because they had big, full-screen displays, and people could download applications that were helping them do their everyday tasks. BlackBerry, however, didn't really keep up with this. They thought that physical keyboard was so important. In fact, even in 2010, BlackBerry was still making phones with physical keyboards. It wasn't until 2013 when they released this, their very first touchscreen phone. But by this stage, BlackBerry had lost almost 89% of their total share price. The point here is that you need to listen to your customers. And if you don't, your company is going to fail. We're going to talk today about how Atlassian listens to their customers. We're going to start by talking about our problem and how the team that Matt and I are on, Service Enablement, helps solve that problem. We're then going to dive into reporting and how you can use reporting from your support teams to help drive your business. Then we're going to talk about insights and how you can work with development teams to change the work that they're doing. And finally, we're going to talk about prediction so that your support teams can be prepared for the changes that are coming in the future and that dev teams understand what implications that has on customers. So let's get started with a quick example. Imagine that you had a development team, and that development team was producing a product. That product is used by hundreds, if not thousands, of customers around the world. And most of the time, those customers have an awesome experience. But from time to time, they do run into problems. And when they do, quite often they'll reach out to your support teams. Your support teams get tons of valuable feedback about how you can improve that product. But in Atlassian's case, we have 9 support centers scattered all around the world with over 350 customer success staff servicing over 90,000 customers. And so it's really overwhelming for those support teams to understand who in development they should be contacting to give that feedback to. It was almost like at Atlassian there was a wall between support and development where they just weren't talking to each other. That's where our team came in. We acted as the link between support and development with 2 key roles. Firstly, being able to provide insights, so understanding why customers were contacting support and feeding those back through to development teams. And secondly, to provide readiness, making sure that when dev teams do release something, that support is being told about those changes so that they can continue to provide a really high standard of support. If I was to summarize our team's objective, it would be in this one statement, and that's to create a frictionless product experience for our customers. What this really means is that customers shouldn't have to reach out to support for help. But when they do, we want to be there to support them. So how do we do this?
So we're going to demonstrate to you that the tools and tactics that service enablement uses could be used inside of any organization, not just in Atlassian. And to help visualize that example, we're going to be talking about an imaginary application, Shirt Vote. So Atlassian has shirts. We have lots and lots of shirts. We have shirts for everything, like our products, Jira Service Desk. We have shirts for events, like Ship at 30. We have shirts for celebrations, such as when we hit the 40,000 customer milestone. And we have shirts for fun, like our Game of Code's Big Bash in 2014. So let's imagine that we developed an application to manage all of these shirts. Shirt Vote would allow users to add new shirt designs and browse shirt designs that were added by other users. And then when you click into a shirt, you can learn more about that shirt and vote on it if you'd like to see it printed. So Matt's now going to dive into how we build reporting to understand whether customers really love our products or if they're in pain.
So as I said before, support has this awesome opportunity to understand whether customers are experiencing pain when they're using the product. But there are some important things to consider. Firstly, you want something that's really easily trackable when we're looking at a metric. So how can we tell whether anyone inside the organization can tell whether customer pain is going up or whether it's going down? Secondly, it needs to be representative. So when that customer pain does go up, this metric should go up as well. And when it goes down, the metric should go down as well. And finally, you want something that's actionable so that you can understand what is causing that customer pain and work with dev teams to try and fix it. So if we dive back to that shirt vote example that Matt has just talked you through, there are 2 ways that customers may be able to contact your support teams. Firstly, you may have some sort of online portal, in this case, support.shirtvote.com, allowing customers to fill in a form and submit their request that way. But they also may be able to do it through the mobile app by clicking on that help button down the bottom. Both of these ways have the capability to funnel down into your Jira Service Desk, which then your support engineers can help assist your customers. Let's assume that on average, we get about 60 support requests a month for the Shirt Vote application. But if a month came by where you got 90 support requests in a month, that would probably suggest that something was wrong with the application, that your development team had changed something, and as a result, your customers were having to contact support more. Conversely, if you only got 40 support requests in a month, that may suggest that something was good with the application. They'd made some improvement that was stopping customers from having to contact support. So that helped us tick that first box. Anyone in your organization can go into Service Desk or have a dashboard inside of Service Desk that tracks the number of support requests a month. But what we noticed when we looked at ShirtVote was that the numbers kept going up and up and up. Month after month after month, more and more customers were contacting us. This confused us because we thought we were trying to make improvements inside of the product. But what we noticed was that more customers were continually using the app. Over time, customers were growing. And that kind of made sense. If you got more customers, all else equal, you would expect more support requests. To solve that problem, we came up with a new metric called contact index, which is simply the number of support tickets in a 28-day period divided by the number of active users using that application over that time. With that, if we turn it into a ShirtVote example, say we had 60 support requests in a 28-day period and 550 active users, we'd end up with a contact index of 10.9%. What this means is that about 10.9% of all of our customers are reaching out to us in a given month. If we plot that over time, you can now see that our assumption was true. We are actually improving the support experience, and customers are having a better product experience when they use ShirtVote. And that helped us tick that second box. Now, when contact index goes up, we would expect customer pain to be increasing, and when contact index goes down, we would expect customer pain to be decreasing. But we still had no idea why. Take this example where each of these little speech bubbles represents one of your support requests. When you look at it like this, it's really hard to understand why customers are contacting you. Let's zoom into one of those support requests. And here you'll see a whole bunch of fields that are pretty common inside of Jira Service Desk. Things like the description and summary of the issue, as well as the effects version. But probably most important, there's a component field over there. We use components that are set by the support engineer when that ticket comes in to be able to say, this is the area of the product that the customer is having difficulty with. So in this case, the support engineer may apply the viewing shirts component to say that this is why the customer is having difficulty using the product. When we zoom back out, you can see now you have a better view of why customers are contacting us. It's quite clear that there's something wrong with viewing shirts. And that gives us an area that we can dig into to explore how we may improve the product. So that helps us tick that final box, something that's actionable. Matt will now dive into how we can use that to drive insights in the dev organization.
So Matt's talked to us about how we can look at our data to build reporting so we can understand whether our customers love our products or if they're in pain. And now I'm going to talk to you about how we use that data to drive insights so that development makes the best decisions for our customers. Two key ways that we do this in Atlassian is how we rank our bugs and how we engage with development to roll out changes. So bug ranking was a major challenge for Atlassian. A lot of time was being spent figuring out which bug was the most important and which one we should fix first. What we needed to do was build a consistent and objective system to figure out which bug was the most important, and that system needed to be agreed upon by the whole business. To help demonstrate how we rank bugs, I'm going to talk about two bugs affecting ShirtVote right now. The first bug is that when you view a shirt and you click into it, the entire application crashes. The second bug is that when you vote on a shirt, instead of the number going up, it instead went down. So where do we start when we're trying to figure out which bug is the most important? The best place to look is our bug report. At Atlassian, we use jira.atlassian.com as a public-facing bug tracker so that our end users can vote for and watch bugs to register their interest. So the first place that they were interested in is the number of voters and watchers associated with a bug. If a customer is interested in seeing a bug fixed, typically they might vote or watch for it. The second useful piece of information is how many support cases were generated by a particular bug. If we're seeing a lot of support cases caused by a bug, obviously that's one we should fix. So coming back to our bugs, we know that 20 customers have voted for or watched or raised support cases about the view shirts bug. And then we compare that to the voting on shirts bug, which has only seen 10 reports. So on face value, it looks like probably the view shirts bug is the one we want to fix. But every bug report is just the tip of the iceberg. Behind every reporter, there's usually many more users. You can slice that in several different ways. You could slice it by the number of active users that account holds or the license tier. Typically, you choose whichever metric is more important for your business. For ShirtVote, we're trying to drive active users, so that's the metric we're using. So when digging into the number of active users impacted by each of our bugs, we find that the ShirtVote bug is impacting, on average, individual accounts, so one active user. The voting on shirts bug is impacting teams, so about 3 active users on average. So when we perform the complex mathematics, we can figure out that the voting on shirts bug is impacting 10 more active users than the view shirts bug. So maybe that's the one we want to fix now. But another important piece is, how do these bugs actually affect our end users? The way to measure that is severity. How bad is the bug to the business? In ShirtVote, we're going to use 3 different severities. Critical, representing outages or when core functionality is completely broken. Major, which may represent performance problems or if minor functionality is broken. And a minor severity bug, which may represent an inconvenience or a display problem. What you want to do next is weight each of these severities so that you can understand how much more important a critical bug is than a minor bug. When you do this, you want to work with both your support and development teams so you're both aligned on how much worse that critical bug is. For ShirtVote, we're going with minor is 2 points, major is 4 points, and critical is 8. So we think that a critical bug is about 4 times worse than a minor bug. So when we come back to our bugs, we can see the view shirts bug causes a complete outage, whereas the voting on shirts bug is a feature that's not working. We can then translate that into a critical severity for the view shirts bug and a major severity for the voting on shirts bug. So now looking at the bugs, the view shirts bug causes a complete outage for up to 20 users. So that seems like the one we probably want to fix. But there's another factor we need to look at, and that's recency. Recency represents how many customers have reported this problem in the last 90 days. This is important because we want to fix a bug that's causing pain right now, not a bug that caused pain many months ago. So if we look at the graph over time, the blue line representing our view shirts bug and the gray line representing our voting on shirts bug, we can see that the view shirts bug caused a lot of pain earlier in the year, but it's really quietened down now and we're not seeing many problems. Whereas the voting on shirts bug has really spiked up recently and is causing a lot of pain right now. So bringing that back to actual numbers, we've seen 2 reports in the last 90 days for the view shirts bug versus 10 reports in the last 90 days for the voting on shirts bug. So we've just talked about 3 different factors you could use when determining the importance of a bug. And what we need to do now is combine those factors together so that we have a clear way to figure out which bug is more important. We did this by defining a new metric that we called user impact score. In Atlassian, we measure user impact score by multiplying the number of impacted users by the severity weighting by the recency of the bug. So now, let's give each of our bugs a user impact score. So for the view shirts bug, we can see we impacted 20 users. It's got an 8 severity weighting as it was a critical bug, and it's impacting 2 users in the last 90 days. So that turns into a number of 320. The voting on shirts bug has 30 users impacted, severity of 4, 10 recency, so 1,200. At this point, we divide the number by 100 just to make it a little more user-friendly to work with, and we can clearly see that the voting on shirts bug is the one that we want to fix right now. So at Atlassian, we've built a system that automatically determines the UIS of all of our bugs. And so that way, the development team can just pick the bug off the top of the list, and we both agree that's the one they should work on first. So let's take our 2 bugs and put them into that list. So to start with, the viewing shirts bug is second from last. So it's not going to be worked on until the bugs above it are fixed. The voting on shirts bug, though, has clearly the highest user impact score. And so that's the one that our development team and support both agree we should fix right now. So before, we had a lot of disagreement and time wasted to figure out which bugs should we fix. And now we've got a consistent process that automatically tells the development team which bug is the most important. So the development team can just come along, grab that bug with the highest user impact score, and work on it immediately. So now we're telling our development team which bugs they should fix first. And I'm going to talk to you about the key role the support plays in rolling out changes to our customers. Our development teams decided that the customers would like to see functionality to sort shirts. So they built the ability to sort shirts by the number of votes, by the data was added, or by the title alphabetically. They've gone through a pretty standard development process. They've built the thing, they've tested the thing, and now they're ready to roll it out to our customers. At this point, they roll it out to about 5% of customers, represented by our blue line here. And we're seeing not too many support tickets. So this is just our initial cohort to validate that the functionality is working as expected. Everything's looking pretty clear, everything's pretty quiet, so we're ready to roll it out to everyone else. At that point, though, we find out that with users with lots of shirts in their list, when they try and sort it, they get an eternal spinner, and the application never responds. So when, in week 6, we decide to roll this change out to the other 95% of users, we see a gigantic spike in support cases. And that's a real big pain on the support team, and the development team has to rush to fix this bug as quick as possible. But most of all, our customers having a terrible experience. So now let's imagine that instead of kind of rolling everything out as a big bang at the end, that we do a more gradual deployment to our customers. So the blue line there, we can see over 3 weeks, we've rolled out the change to about 20% of our customers. The green support tickets are looking pretty quiet. Everything's going okay. In week 4, we roll out to another 10%. Amongst that 10% are some of those customers that experienced the performance bug. At this point, our support team feeds that information back to the development team so that they're aware of the bug. The development team can pivot, fix the problem, and then we can roll out the change to the rest of our customers, and everyone's happy. So when we look at the actual contact created by each of these changes side by side, we can see the gradual rollout in blue creates a bit more contact over time, but it's a sustainable rate, which is exactly what support likes to see. Whereas the gray line has a massive spike at the end, which is completely unsustainable for support. Not only that, but the big bang rollout process generates 57 support tickets versus the gradual rollout's 29. So our new deployment process looks like this. Support has an integral role in ensuring that the quality of the product is good. We're there to make sure if we see any problems or trends, we feed it back to development quickly. They pivot, fix the problem, and then we'd roll the change out to the rest of our customers. A few tips that we've found when rolling out changes gradually. First of all, engage support early. The earlier that you engage them, the more prepared they are for the change, and often they have excellent insights as to what the impact on the customer might be. Second, build a contact rate, so you can understand how much contact our customers are experiencing from this change. And if you see a new problem or trend, tightly engage with development, feed back to them what needs to be fixed, and allow them to pivot, fix it, and then we can roll the change out to everyone else. So now we've got reporting identifying whether customers love our product or not, and we've got insights being fed back into the development team to ensure that our customers are getting the best value product. And now Matt's going to talk about prediction.
So everything we've talked about so far has been understanding the past and helping do stuff in the present. But the future is really important too. There are a couple of reasons for that. First of all, hiring support and making sure you've got enough support staff to deal with increases in load is really important, and you need to understand that. Secondly, the customer experience is really important. So if your product team is going to release large amounts of change all at once when they don't need to do that, it doesn't make any sense. Thirdly, it helps with negotiations with development to say, if you do have lots of stuff releasing at once, can we spread that out across multiple weeks or multiple months? And finally, it helps with goal setting to track those rollouts, both within development and inside of support, to make sure you're complying with what you forecast at the start. To think about how we do forecasting at Atlassian, we split it up into 2 key areas. Firstly, a baseline forecast. That's about understanding how customers generally contact us about a particular product. So in this case, we'll talk about Shirtboat. Secondly, we look at the number of initiatives that are happening over the next year. Those are the changes that the product team are making to the product, and they could increase the amount of contact you get, but they could also decrease the amount of contact. Let's start by talking a bit about the baseline. So at Atlassian, there are lots of ways that we do baseline forecasting. Most of them are fairly complicated, like using Facebook's Profit or Arima. But today, we're going to talk about a really basic example of just looking at the average contact index across the last 2 years. So imagine that this chart over here represents that contact index across the last 2 years. You can see the blue line is 2016 and the black line is 2017. That gives us a general vibe of how many customers are contacting us and what that rate looks like. So if we just take an average of those two, it would be represented by this line. So if we were to forecast the year ahead and understand the baseline forecast, this is probably a pretty good estimate of how customers would contact us. But we need to know the number of support tickets, not the contact index, because that's what we need to hire to. To do that, we go back to the contact index equation, and we reverse engineer it to figure out the number of support tickets. So if you rearrange it like this, the number of support tickets is equal to the contact index times by the number of active users you think you're going to have over that year ahead. We've worked out the contact index, looking at the average approach before, but if you have a more complex model, you can insert that there. And then we get the number of active users forecast from generally a sales team or a forecasting team inside of your organization. So combining those two things together, we can get a number of support tickets that we expect over the year ahead. This acts as a solid baseline for us to understand that rate of contact. But as I said before, it's really important to understand how the product is going to change in the year ahead, and that depends on your experience and understanding of that product roadmap.
So there are two types of initiatives that change contact. There are contact decreases, such as if you fix a bug or you improve a feature, and there are contact increases, such as when you do a rollout that we mentioned earlier, or if you're changing underlying infrastructure. First, we'll talk about contact decreases. Let's cast our mind back to when we were talking about the user impact score, and at that point we agreed with the development the most important bug to fix was the voting on shirts bug. So our development team is committed that they're going to fix that bug in February. Now we know by looking at our data that that bug generates about 4 tickets per month. So what we can do then is just simply subtract the 4 tickets per month off starting from February. And that gets us an understanding of a contact decrease that we expect to happen. Contact decreases are relatively easy to understand. We know the problem exists, and we have data about how much contact that problem generates. Contact increases, on the other hand, are a little more challenging. How much contact does a rollout cause, for example? So our development team is building a new piece of functionality, searching. So how do we determine how much contact that searching functionality will cause in the first few months? So the best way to look at how much contact something will cause is to look at a similar change that's happened in the past. So in this case, if we cast our mind back to when we rolled out sorting functionality, we can see that in month 1, we had about 19 tickets. And in month 2, we had 10 tickets. Now, unless we understand something new about this search functionality rollout, it's best to assume that our new forecast will be the same. So we know now that the search functionality will be rolled out to our customers in May and June. So if we imply that 19 issue increase to May and 10 issue increase to June, this is our new forecast. So at this point, we can then combine both our decrease and our increase, and this gives us a final forecast of how many tickets we're going to get over the year. And why is this important? Well, hiring. So you know that in May and June, you're going to get a big spike in support tickets. So you need to make sure that you match your hiring to that spike. You also know that in May and June, there's a big rollout planned. And so you want to work with the development team to minimize other change that occurs at that time. And finally, we're able to set goals that our development team can work against. And that way we can measure how successful they are being at building a product with minimal customer pain.
So to wrap everything up, we talked about 3 key things. Firstly, we talked about reporting and how we'd come up with a measure called contact index that was very easily trackable, representative, and actionable when you needed to understand why it went up or why it went down. Secondly, Matt talked about 2 ways that you can take insights to product teams. Firstly, he talked about user impact score as a way that you can automatically prioritize bugs, stopping dev teams from having that difficult discussion about which bug they should fix first. Secondly, he talked about rollouts and how if you can understand the rollout pattern and get fast feedback loops happening with development, you can avoid large amounts of customer pain when you roll everything out at once. And finally, we talked about prediction, being able to understand how customer pain will increase or decrease over the year ahead so that you can plan your support teams to have the support staff to deal with customer requests, but also to have negotiations with development teams to ensure they're constantly improving the product and understand how that pain changes over time. So, in conclusion, if you have a support team, have you unleashed the potential in customer insights that they hold? Because now is your time. It's an investment in your customers. Thank you.